all these people were sent from that planet. All these people were sent from that planet to help Earth, to protect Earth. And when he went to to that other planet, they were celebrating because they had succeeded at helping Earth. So that was so fascinating.
Life is but a dream. Life is but a dream. Life is but a dream. Yeah. The Praise the Sun podcast, where I am honored to bring on hypnosis instructor, peak performance coach, and healer, Randi Light. This is going to be an excellent, great show for you all. Let's get this going. How are you doing, Randi? It's good to see you.
Well, it's so good to see you too, which makes my heart sing because it's been a couple years.
Yes, yes. From before I even met you at the conference, when I saw the last name Light, I didn't know who you were, but I knew I needed to meet you because it's such a unique, last name. It's just like, how could you not want to meet someone whose name is Randi Light? Like, come on, that's an angel right there.
Yes.
That's an angel right there.
Thank you.
But yeah, it's good to see you. How long have you been practicing hypnosis for the audience?
17 years now.
17 years. Wow. 17 years. So what made you get into hypnosis? Like what interests you in hypnosis?
I was a massage therapist, and I was starting to no longer be able to twist and like open cans of or jars without having this painful electric current up my hand. So I needed a new way of helping people heal that didn't use my body. I had no idea hypnosis could work for pain relief or any of the things really that it could be used for. And so I ended up looking in a magazine. I needed a new way of helping people heal. This really cool magazine in the Midwest, in the Chicago area. And it had this big advertisement, and it said I could go for 2 12-hour days to learn about hypnosis for about the same introductory rate as it would to go and get a private session with a local person. So I did that. And eventually, though, I did get trained by the local person. And that's how I got started. I had no idea it could be used for all, anxiety and depression, insomnia, chronic pain. Like, who knew? But it is a fabulous journey. And that's how I began.
Thank you so much for that. So, um, can you explain like the basics of hypnosis and how hypnosis works for the audience who might not be familiar with it?
Absolutely. I personally love hypnosis, and actually, it's a normal, natural, common, everyday occurrence. It's a brainwave state. It's a state that basically, the simple term is it's a focused state. It's a focused state of awareness. It's a focused state of concentration. It's a focused state where you're more open and receptive. And like I said a few moments ago, it's a normal, natural, common, everyday occurrence that you go in and out of many times a day. Whenever we get focused on a book, a movie, a project, when we get absorbed in something, our brain waves slow down from the active thinking, doing brain into alpha, which is a light state of hypnosis or a light state of meditation. It's the zone where athletes and performers perform their very best, and it's hypnosis. And really, the main difference between hypnosis and meditation is hypnosis is meditation with a goal. When you're watching TV, for example, 2/3 of the time, if we were to measure your brainwaves, they'd be cycling in alpha, that light state of hypnosis.
Thank you for that. And I love that you said like hypnosis is like meditation with the goal. I think that's like really powerful, especially because a lot of people practice meditation, but they may have trouble getting into those deeper states that hypnosis can actually help get you into. So thank you for that. Um,
Yes. But here's the thing that I love. I think it's easier to do self hypnosis. It's easier to get into self hypnosis than to meditate because so many people, when we're doing meditation, think that they just need to quiet their mind. If we have 60,000 thoughts a day, that's a pretty tough ask to not have thoughts. So people get tripped up with that. But when you focus on something like going down a set of stairs or walking along a beach, your brain waves naturally slow down and it's easy to enter into a light state of hypnosis. And what I also love about hypnosis is the research says that a suggestion given in a hypnotic state, even one time, can have the same effect as long term conditioning and practice. So when we get out of the active thinking, doing brain and our brainwaves slow down into alpha and theta, we can deliver suggestions like, from this moment forward, you're more calm, confident, and in control of your thoughts and feelings, actions and reactions. And that's the benefit of hypnosis, or being guided into hypnosis and having a hypnotist as your guide, because then we can deliver those suggestions for you and it's easier for you to accept and receive and grab onto them.
Thank you for that. So I'm glad you mentioned self hypnosis. What would be the main differences between, let's say, a meditation that you're doing by yourself versus a self hypnosis kind of situation there?
Well, there's so many different kinds of meditation, just like there's so many different ways of getting yourself into the alpha and theta brainwave states of hypnosis. And with meditation, a lot of times people think that, and it's great to do meditation. It has different qualities. It does different things for you. It's not necessarily goal oriented, but it can help reduce stress because you're focusing on breathing, or focusing on even like a candle, or letting thoughts go. You're being more of an observer. But with self hypnosis, there are many different ways to get yourself into that alpha and theta brainwave state. And there isn't any wrong or right way of doing it. But what I like to teach my clients and my students are three things. And it's vividly imagine the end result with a great feeling. Now, being in hypnosis in the alpha and theta brainwave states is a great feeling. Gratitude is a great feeling. Vividly imagine means engage all your senses. So even if you just imagine yourself at the beach, for example, you might feel the warm sun on your skin and see the bright blue expansive sky. Listen for the sounds of water or animals welcoming you and greeting you. Feel the warm sun on your skin. So that's vividly imagine. But that end result, so if there's something that you want to manifest, want to bring into your life, want to change, heal, self hypnosis is well, hypnosis in general is a change agent, but self hypnosis, when you vividly imagine the end result with a great feeling, that is what it's so easy to do in hypnosis, to get into the attitude of gratitude and experience the end result of whatever outcome that you actually want. And when you do that in hypnosis, that's a great way to get what you want. Now, you can take yourself down a set of stairs if you want and tell yourself, I'm going to count backwards and every number is going to double my relaxation. You can imagine erasing numbers in the sand. You can imagine little clouds going by, or you can just count backwards, or even just like imagine yourself leaving your wherever you are, your room, going down the stairs, going out the door. All of that focusing will get you into the alpha state. But if you deliver yourself suggestions to take yourself deeper, that helps. But then no matter what, once you get yourself into the state, you want to vividly imagine the end result with a great feeling.
Thank you for that. That's really powerful, honestly, because I've heard this idea many times from different places of envision it as it's already happening now, like envision the end result now, and that seems to be like a good idea to help transform people's lives in a positive way. So sorry if I kind of butchered that, but I was just trying to combine
You
everything.
didn't.
Okay, I was trying to combine so many ideas at once because I really love that. So let's talk about the hypnosis industry. So compared to when you first learned about it and you became, a hypnotist and everything, back then, how has the industry evolved and changed? Is it more accepting? Are people less like, whoa, stay away from me with that, and more like, yeah, I'm open and receptive to that? How has that changed
I
from your
truly think
perspective?
it's a little bit of both, but in general, it's been more accepted. We know that Hollywood portrays hypnotists as having these incredible powers. And boy, do I wish that was true, because if I had the incredible power that Hollywood portrays, everybody would be their ideal weight, and everybody would be completely healthy. And that's how I say I do healing hypnosis, not Hollywood hypnosis. And so some people are afraid of it from that. But in general, we have so many more hypnotists, so many more schools, so many more conferences. I really think it's starting to get into our psyche that it is a wonderful, fast, and effective change agent. And I led a keynote speech at one of the hypnosis conferences in August. And the whole thing that I kept saying was, let's get hypnosis to be the number one healing modality, the go-to healing modality, instead of the last one. And if we did that, like and that's where a number of hypnotists I know are on a mission to get it out there, to get people to understand, to learn how to use your mind. I mean, I had the energy and power I did when I was much younger to get this into the schools, right? And teach the kids peak performance and how to utilize their mind, how to communicate effectively, how to even use like the law of attraction, but really basically how to use your mind for success.
Thank you for that. That's beautiful. It would be great for it to be like the number one thing,
Yes.
the first step. So for it to be the number one step, wouldn't it have to be more accepted in the kind of the mainstream industry, I guess, medical field in a way, or like how would we have to make that happen?
It's very difficult competing with the pharmaceutical companies, right? They have a lot of money, and many of the doctors are basically, they're taught about all the different meds and stuff, and that's mainly many doctors or medical doctors focus, right? They don't know anything about hypnosis or the power of the mind, or even other things. Like I have a girlfriend who has been taking some cancer pills to help overcome her cancer, and it's been keeping the cancer at bay. But it killed her belly is hurting tremendously, and she was really hoping that her cancer doctor, would be able to help her with the belly issues. And I told her that probably wouldn't happen because he's laser focused on cancer. And so when she went, he didn't have any answers for her, but luckily I do. So I can help her with a lot of different things, emotionally and physically, because she's my friend. But the thing is just to continue doing what we're doing, getting out there more, talking to more people, doing more presentations, creating more hypnotists, having more schools, letting people know in every aspect on social media that this is an alternative, a possibility that can help people with so many different things. Now, I used to say to my students when I was teaching my students, because I'm a hypnosis instructor and I have been for about the past 7 years, what can we use hypnosis for? And I'd have them all announce everything. That's the word, because you pretty much can do it for everything. And that's a fascinating thing to think about, but that doesn't really say anything at the same time. So if you're dealing with anxiety, depression, if you want to be a better version of yourself, if you want to get out of your own way, you have limiting beliefs, if you have insomnia, if you want to just get better at attracting into your life what you want, it's so countless what it can be used for. It can help people with surgery and create a faster healing, whatever that is: emotional, physical, mental, or spiritual, even financial and sexual.
Thank you for that. I love that explanation. Um, so, financial is definitely a big one for people who are trying to transform their lives. Have you seen that growth within your clients where they kind of broke through that psychological barrier after a session of they're having so much success?
Oh gosh, yes. Yeah, that's why I created a protocol. It's a 4-session system that can get you from where you are to where you want to be very quickly. And it's called the Essential 4, actually. I have the book right here, and this is what I just trained all my students in the Essential Four. And it's 4 sessions that I believe virtually any person on the planet, or every person on the planet, would benefit from going through. And that first session, I pretty much do those 4 sessions with almost every human being that comes into my office, because it gets results and it can be tailored to each person's issues. And but the first session does what almost every person that comes into my office wants, and it reduces stress. It melts the stress. It resets your systems. It builds confidence. It helps you respond more resourcefully to the world, and it does what I call a little bit of emotional clearing in a light and easy way, so you can have a great hypnotic experience. And when I started doing this, this first session with my clients, even if I didn't deliver a suggestion, let's say regarding weight loss, but because the client felt so good after she left my office, she chose salmon over pizza. I do deliver a suggestion about sleeping better, just one, and it's a really long session. And people's insomnia goes away. People's pains go away. I had fibromyalgia go into remission when I did that first session. But then the Essential Four, we start doing the deeper work to get to the root cause of the anxiety, or get root cause of the anger, or whatever, the guilt, whatever it is. And I add some special, what I call hypnotic enhancers, that really help make the change neurologically and on the cellular level. And we continue doing some of that deeper work, and also do forgiveness work, because that is some of the most profound thing. But most people are not ready to do forgiveness for themselves or others on that first session. So we build towards that. And like I said, almost everybody on the planet would benefit from going through these 4 sessions. So I consistently and constantly see incredible results with kids and adults. I also have a stroke victim. Yesterday, I had a 17-year-old and a 12-year-old, and they all come in for different things, even like trichotillomania, or whatever, however you say that, with the hair pulling and shyness and different aspects. So it really can be used for almost everything.
Wow, thank you for that. I wanted to double back real quick before I forget, because I wanted to mention this, but I've very often seen a lot of medical practitioners, doctors, who switched from the usual route of the pharmacy and everything to naturopath, because they felt like it was a conflict of interest. They felt very drained of having to essentially shield pharmaceutical products, knowing that in their minds they know it's a conflict of interest because of, their relationship with the pharmaceutical company, and it just didn't sit right with them, and now they're much happier in the natural path. That's for the doctors who actually care and want, their people to walk away feeling better, not suffering from side effect and side effect, and here, let me treat this with another one. Oh, you have a side effect, here's another pill for that. So yeah, I just wanted to get that out there because of what I remember. Because it would, it would be great if hypnosis was the first step, but the pharmaceutical company, they have that grip on us, But yes, so you were talking about forgiveness, and I feel like I hear that a lot, that a lot of people need to have that self forgiveness. My question to you is, why is it, from all the sessions that you've done, why is it so hard for us to forgive ourselves as humans? Like, why do we have that?
It's a great question, and obviously it depends on the person. But the short answer would be our ego. Like there's a concept out there that says the number one fear is the fear of being wrong. So nobody wants to feel wrong. And if I like to talk about that, people have a go-to emotion, their dominant negative emotion. Like, I'm used to go to anger more than guilt, if you will. Now, I feel all the emotions, but I'm a Libra, and anger is a sense of unfairness. And so I've worked on that. So, I mean, I'm not, I've never been an angry person, but out of all the emotions, that's the one I would go to. Where guilt is where when people turn against themselves. Many people don't love themselves. And that's one of the key things that I incorporate into my program, and I believe makes it so much easier for people to forgive themselves. When you learn to love yourself, accept yourself, stop criticizing yourself, then your ego is more intact, not in charge, and it's easier for you to let go of things and to make mistakes. We're also not taught to make mistakes. The billionaire lady who made the Spanx girdle thing, I guess that's what it called. I found it fascinating. She shared in an interview that her dad would encourage her and her brother every week to go into high school and fail at something, right? And make a mistake, fail at something, and come back, and at dinner they report it. And this made her more resilient to making mistakes and learning from them and letting them go. And so when we love ourselves and accept ourselves and stop the self-criticism, we know we have our back, and we make mistakes. Like, I made a mistake at about an hour before, $100 mistake. So it wasn't $1,000 mistake. And at first it felt I just felt these awful feelings in here, but I had to forgive myself and let it go and move on. And because I've done some of the work, a lot of work, I mean, literally spent thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars and thousands and thousands and thousands of hours getting other people's BS and my mother's critical voice out of my head so I could truly love and accept myself. So I could get, I'm there for myself. I made a mistake. I need to learn and move on. And so when we start to recognize that, because people throw themselves under the bus all the time, if when you start to do that, it's so much easier to forgive yourself and others. And I just have to say, like, for if you wanted to work with me privately, you have to sign an agreement that says, I promise to stop self-criticism, I promise to learn to love and accept myself and be there for myself and become my own BFF, best friend forever. And so that sets up the stage for success and for forgiveness of self and anything else.
I love that contractual agreement there. Um, do you feel that people kind of take it more serious when they sign that contract? Like, okay, I have to take this serious, like
Yes. That's why I
that's
make them do it. And I tell them, I understand that it's a tall order at the moment, right? When they're doing it, but the journey is to teach them and to have them catch themselves when they're being mean to themselves.
so. I'm not sure if you noticed or not, because this question just came to mind. But has there been any research or evidence to show that hypnosis kind of encourages neuroplasticity in the brain at all? Because neuroplasticity is the ability for the brain to make different choices, and the neurons fire differently when something's triggering. You know, has there been? I'm not sure if you know. I just want to ask.
Well, I'm searching my brain right now, right,
Okay.
for a direct example.
Okay.
Uh, we know that when people meditate or go into the alpha and theta brainwave states of hypnosis or meditation, that something changes, right? We know that the old patterns, old habits, right, that are programmed into our subconscious, into our nervous system, into our brains, into our bodies, change. I can't cite off an exact thing that talks about the neuroplasticity, but we know what happens when you're in a hypnotic state, and we know that whenever if you keep. So I teach my students and my clients that there are 5 ways our subconscious gets programmed, and one way is hypnosis, but another way is repetition. And we know that when you repeat something, it creates a neural pathway, or enhances one that's there, and it gets thicker and thicker. Well, if you create a new one of being confident, believing in yourself, it superimposes. And when you focus on that, it automatically starts to create that. Now, this isn't researched, but what I have discovered, and it just seems obvious once you hear it, is so we know that our subconscious has stored everything that's ever happened to us. And then we say that 95% of our behaviors are subconscious, right? And your subconscious stored everything that's ever happened to us. But the memories get stored in our bodies, in our nervous systems, from the perspective of the age you are when the event takes place. And a 4-year-old's version of the world is very different than a 10 or 20 or 30 or 40. But when you have the ability to be an observer and bring an adult awareness into the 4-year-old's version of the world, then you can change it to you can help upgrade a limiting belief, which changes the way you show up, which changes which part of the area of the brain fires off. Now, Dr. Joe Dispenza is doing countless research because at his retreats, they're testing blood, they're testing the brain before, during, after, like a sample, and demonstrating that different areas of the brain fire off. The amygdala stops firing, that's the emotional center of the brain, and like the dopamine and different things, all from doing specific types of guided meditation, if you will.
I really love the work that he's doing. It's really pushing us forward in
Yes.
the trajectory of understanding how consciousness and how the neurology of all those things work. So, yeah, I'm always excited to hear about his progress because from what I've also read and heard, that he also had people with cancer cure themselves with the power of their mind. That's absolutely incredible. I mean, the pharmaceutical companies would be on notice if they you know had massive amounts of people just spontaneously cure themselves with their minds. But that's the power that every individual have, and they just don't know it, they're just not taught it. So
Exactly.
yeah, I love that aspect. So so from your perspective, I wanted to ask another question about hypnosis, but like in a different, like kind of in the spiritual one. Is there any connection between spirituality and hypnosis from your experience at all?
Absolutely. um, so I have been teaching spiritual hypnosis at conferences and intuitive activation hypnosis at conferences, because what I have noticed is when people go through the essential four, they become more intuitive. That's another positive aspect of it all. And so, what's actually happening when you're becoming more intuitive, and why are you becoming more intuitive when you do the emotional clearing? Well, if you're carrying resentment somewhere, or anger in the body, or different things, that takes up space. And when that takes up space, you're not necessarily present and paying attention. You're mad about something or upset about something, and you get easily triggered. So you're not present and focused and being able to download insights and information. And so that's one of the aspects. But there, like on my third session, when I do timeline therapy with my clients, as long as they're ready for all of this, they get to invite a guide to come with them. And like one time, it was my client's deceased sister that was the guide. And so she was crying and connecting with her sister, and so that was what we had to do. And another time I went to, when I was at with someone at the forgiveness fire, she said, "Grandpa, what are you doing here?" And he said, "Well, I want you to give a message to your mother." Right. And he was dressed a certain way. So there was already starting to be spiritual things. And I remember when I first began, I was working with this physical therapist, and her hands were messed up, and she needed some help, and she had sleep issues. And so when I did regression work with her, she went back so at 3 o'clock, she'd always wake up, and she never felt like she wanted to actually be here. And she'd always wanted to go home. Now, I didn't know what would happen. And during this time, so there was like some cloud blocking her or something. So I helped her break through the cloud and go home. And I swear to God, I didn't know at the time. I was like, is she going to die right in my office? Because all she wanted to do was go home. And now she's going home. But obviously, that is not what happened. And that doesn't happen. And we have a cord that connects us and always keeps us, tethered into this body. Even if we leave the body, we can easily get back to the body. I also had another client who came in for anxiety and different things, but he had a major trauma in utero. His brother had passed, and he did not. They both died and came back when they were in utero, and so he always had this survivor's guilt, and um, And we had to work on a number of different things to help him to feel better and be glad to be here. And when I brought him to his higher self sanctuary, he eventually ended up having a door to home, if you will, to the spirit world, to a world where all he just saw all these orbs and felt all this unconditional love. It was incredible. And to me, that was so unique and so special because he felt all the love that was there. And I'm like, he just had a door. It was like a portal to it. So I have just seen incredible things, people becoming more intuitive and more naturally more spiritual, feeling more connected to themselves, to a better version of themselves, to the world as a result of doing emotional clearing and healing through hypnosis.
Beautiful. Wow, that is an amazing story of feeling that unconditional love. That's so powerful. I think the second time I had met you at one of the conferences, I can't remember where it was, but I was a part of a group where you did a group past life regression session, and that was really powerful for me because at the time I was really struggling with weed and smoking addiction, and I regressed back to a time period where I was an Indian man, and my family, my father was doing some like deals with bad people, but I think he had to because we needed money or something like that. Things went bad, and I think my most of my family was killed, and it was just me and him. And as I grew up, I was like really bad into smoking, and I think I developed some type of cancer or something like that. But I had so much resentment for him throughout my life because of losing those family members. And I remember I came out of it, and I was like, I think you said like if you were stuck or something like that, stay here, and we'll rework you through it. And I was one of the individuals who was stuck because I was just like, what was that? So you helped ground me. We went back in there, we tied the knots and released and everything, and it was a great, powerful experience. And I say all that to say, how did you learn about the past life regression aspect of hypnosis, and what are some of the amazing benefits?
Well, so many of my students come in because they got fascinated with past life regression, right? That's students and clients. Many Lives, Many Masters, which I know you probably know the book. Dr. Brian Weiss wrote that book, and he was one of the people who made it popular, basically, past life regression. Dr. Dick Sutphin, oh, I just love him. He passed a couple of years ago, and he was just an incredible being. And I studied with him past life regression and some other hypnotists as well, um, because it was so fascinating. That's why what got me interested. I wanted to know about past lives, and I knew that because I've had two soulmates, and I knew my son's dad. I knew him before. I just knew it. I could tell. And then all this magic and amazing things happened that really made sure I knew that, and that was really cool. But so I always was like, okay, there's something here. And then after reading the books, and probably also after my father passed, that made me really get interested in death even more. I mean, I was always on a spiritual path anyway, so I wanted to do past life regression. And the thing is when you do regression work, so it's part of the essential four, it's the affect bridge regression technique. And if I take people back to the root cause of their guilt, it is possible they'll go back to another lifetime. So people would spontaneously go back to other lifetimes. And I teach my students how to be prepared for that. And so I wanted to be prepared for that, and how to help people in other lifetimes, because we can bring energy from other lifetimes. Remember, if our subconscious has stored everything that's ever happened to us, then that includes other lifetimes. And you could really call it more of your super conscious, and that's what gets stored. But we can access these memories. And like I live in Northwest Indiana, and it is my most popular event, if you will. I get asked more to do group past life regression than anything else. And that's, if that's not telling about where the world is, and the world is really changing, and basically waking up and becoming more spiritual because they're they feel like there's something missing and they need some help with all the craziness that's going on in the world. What I have observed through doing thousands of past life regressions in groups and individuals, like people who have recurring dreams, they understand it more and they can let it go, and it can stop them. You can really understand yourself, like understand why you behave the way you do, certain patterns. Not just understand, but I really do think understanding yourself is so important to help you be the best version of yourself. But letting things go, that, if you, because when we, the concept is, when we go through these other lifetimes, and when we're about to transition and leave our bodies and go into the spirit world, we can bring with us, like, so if you're in hypnosis, and I'll ask you, what are you bringing with you, what are you saying in your mind? I swear I'll never. And then we take that with us. But I'd like to get people into the light and help them to process that, so that they no longer take that with them, and they recognize it, they learn it, they take positive learnings from it, and then get born into love in this lifetime. So there's a lot of different ways that you can do it. You can also awaken talents, and understanding what you did in other lifetimes helps you and can guide you in this lifetime. I think, I answer your question?
Yes, you did. Thank you so much. The talents thing that really stood out to me. Where are there anything that comes to mind that people kind of like awoken, like, oh, I didn't know I could do this.
I know. I'm trying to think of that, because here's the thing. When I do my group past life regression, I don't end up having a lot of time to process, even though that's everybody's favorite thing, is to process after, because we do so much healing work during it. So let me circle back and think, and let me see if something pops into my head. I mean, I think one of the funniest thing is when I was training my students and I hadn't trained them how to do past life regression, and I spontaneously go to another lifetime. Um, but I don't have an answer off the top of my head right now. But I do, now that I'm starting to think about it, I did have this one person who was like a high priestess. That is also what I have noticed. A couple of people went back to when they were like leaders, and they're, they lost their community, if you will, their tribe, and they had all this guilt and stuff because they weren't able to save their people because of some of the decisions they made and the things that were happening. And so I helped them process that. I know it's not exactly what you were looking for, but I did have this one person who it really truly awakened her. And actually, I did meet her in St. Louis as well too, and she's an incredible healer and hypnotherapist. And she does energy work, and I actually asked her to work with one of my friends online because she needed it. But I have a whole list of the things that she activated and what she was taught because of the things that she learned in another lifetime that was doing then. She could incorporate and bring into this lifetime and utilize that healing ability to help people. And she's been doing that. So it was really cool.
Wow, that's amazing. It really reminded me of that, like everything you just said about that person's experience reminded me 100% exactly of my own experience of uh, the guilt that I felt when I was uncovering memories of being a part of the Atlantis type of civilization, which wasn't called that back then, but I just remembered feeling so much guilt because of the level of responsibility that I had, and allowing other people's free will to kind of like supersede what I knew was going to lead us to disaster. So I just had to. When you feel those emotions, you're like, there's no way that I'm just making this up. Like it sits like a weight on my chest, and I have to work through that forgiveness of just like acceptance of like there's nothing I can do. I just remember being in the water and seeing everything sink, and now I'm drowning, and I'm like, wow, this how
But
did I let how did I let this come to this? Yeah.
which I think that, certainly is going to affect how you show up today until you do the work, right? Because you're scared to let your light shine. The easy one is to talk about like Salem and so many women being murdered all over, and healers being killed, and scared to talk about things, right? I didn't always talk about spiritual things, and I didn't have a lot of it on my website, but so many people are wanting it now, and it's really needed, and it just spontaneously happened with my world. I work with anybody. I'll help you no matter what your religious or spiritual background is. If you want to break through something. So I don't know, that plays a role too. It can be extremely painful and block you, right? And that's the beauty of going to a hypnotist, because you can make sense of it or piece of it or learn from it. That's my favorite, to take positive learnings from people. And when I do regression, whether it's this lifetime or another lifetime, I always teach my students to burp your clients. And that means that, and it's not in any particular order, but when you're back in time in a memory, in order to be able, you want it to become neutral or empowering, right? So you want to be able to figure out what belief you created, right? So if we're going to ask you that, what belief did you create? What emotions were you feeling? And you said that weighed on you, but what resources would you need to make that event neutral or empowering? And what positive learnings can you take from that? Like, it wasn't your fault. It was out of your control. You were doing the best you could. You really cared, but or people make mistakes. Those are all positive learning. So getting those can help you, whether this lifetime or another lifetime, discover that, and make it neutral or empowering. I don't want to limit it to neutral, but if you can even have a memory become even empowering, right? Because you learned how to be or not to be as a result of the way people treated you.
Yeah, it took me a long time to work through that because I was absolutely in love with our civilization. Like I adored it. And I guess the biggest pain for me was just feeling like everything was going to be washed away and no one would ever know that we existed. And that was really painful for me. So, yeah, for forgiveness. It's- it feels like that's been the reoccurring theme for me is forgiveness and acceptance that I can be spiritual in this lifetime because I also had the reoccurring thing of being killed for the things that I said. Like one time I was a monk and I was like, why are we listening to? Yeah, I was just practicing self empowerment. That was it. It wasn't even nothing super spiritual. And it was like off with your head. So it's just, that's the. I definitely felt that fear. And I had apprehensiveness with being a hypnotist as well because I was afraid like is this good? Am I gonna get into the spiritual aspect of this, and am I gonna be killed again? But that was like a subconscious thought. Obviously, I'm not gonna be killed for being a hypnotist, but that was just the reoccurring themes. Like this is getting scary, But so, are there any specific regressions that you've done for people that like really stood out to you? Like maybe something people regress and they weren't even on this planet, or something like that. Because the whole reason I even got interested in hypnosis is because of Dolores Cannon's book, and in one of her books, she had someone who was like in a different like an entirely different planet, and this person was like a robot or something like that. Like their soul essence was inside of a robot, and their intent was to literally to just go up and go to a place and blow up, and they just kept doing that. So when they incarnated on Earth, they were a murderer, and they was like, well, why is this happening to me? And they went through the past life thing, and that was the energy that they was carrying inside of them. So obviously that's a terrible example, but is there any positive ones that you kind of stood out?
I'll share a couple. Yeah. Well, one I did actually. So I used to lead these. I used to call them hypnosis meditations, but I would do these free ones once a month or something at this place. And this one dude started leaving his body during it, and it's a group, so I don't know that, but he came to me privately to deal with it, and it just made him scared that he was leaving his body, and he always felt like he was different than everybody else. And anyway, I taught him how to just leave his body, and that he's in control, and broke through the fear. But then I probably should try to pull it out, and because I do record my sessions, but he went to another lifetime where he was not human. I mean, not, yeah, so he wasn't human. He was from an alien planet. And I swear to God, I think it was like in the future. And, or maybe it was the future. And what had happened, so the timing of it all, I'll just share with you what he told me, but all these people were sent from that planet. All these people were sent from that planet to help Earth, to protect Earth. And when he went to that other planet, they were celebrating because they had succeeded at helping Earth. So that was so fascinating. But if we bring it back to like regular things, if you will, my two favorite things that I share all the time with all of my clients, because it's a great way to explain how powerful hypnosis and regression can be, is I had this client who he carried a lot of guilt. He was in his 60s, overweight, diabetic, right? He had post-traumatic stress because he had been in Vietnam. And when I did regression with him to the root cause of his guilt, he went back to when he was 4 years old. And when he was four, he had a cold. And he had a baby brother that he loved and adored that was very, very sick. So all the adults told the little 4-year-old, "You've got this cold. Don't go visit your baby brother because he's sick and he could die." Well, he's 4 years old. He loved the baby. He visited the baby and the baby died. So he carried the belief for 60 years that he killed his baby brother until we did this work. And you bring an adult awareness into that 4-year-old's perspective of the world. Not everyone's is wounded, but we all have a 4-year-old that lives inside us, and to help change the belief to the truth. Now, I like this morning, or I mean, just before this, I had another client who I took back to when she was 3. She went back to disappointment. She was 3 years old, and her parents they like they were like downstairs and working at something, and she was upstairs all by herself doing things that 3-year-olds should not be alone doing. And she didn't tell me what they were, but she felt like she kept making mistakes. And I literally had a 3-year-old at my house this weekend, and I mean, they're 3. This dude could barely talk. He could barely run. And of course, if he were left by himself, he would make all kinds of mistakes, but she had to understand that it wasn't her fault. And I mean, one more thing I'll share with you is I did have this woman who, when she was 3, she hid under her mother's bed, and her mother was being murdered. And she felt guilty, like she was supposed to help her mother. And that's the beautiful thing about hypnosis and regression, to help them understand it wasn't their fault and to burp them, right? To take the positive learnings. She was 3. There was nothing that she could do.
Wow, that is powerful. So to talk about the person who saw Earth and they succeeded, does that like really create a sense of like, I don't know, happiness and joy and empowerment for you about the future of this planet? Like, this, how did that make you feel hearing about the person said we succeeded? Like,
Yes, it did. I know, we've been talking a lot about regression, but there's a thing called progression, right? And Dick Sutphin, who I mentioned earlier, who has some wonderful books and wonderful audio recordings and videos and things that you can get. He had a radio show years and years ago, may even be the 70s, and so they had like 1,000 people on the show at one time, and they took them out into the future and then had them report back what they had seen or heard or felt. And basically, it was like 3 groups, 3 different scenarios. And so many spiritual people will say that the future is fluid, right? And I agree. We have self will, and so I mean free will. Yeah, so I'm on board with that. But so that also fascinated me. Back to when I was doing my teaching my keynote, doing my keynote speech. I mean, the whole thing is when I talk about vividly imagining the end result with a great feeling, most of us do it for us. But what if we also considered doing it for the planet, right? So we vividly imagine the planet, the doing great, right? We've reduced the impact of global warming. We're planting more trees. All people are housed, clothed, fed, healthy, happy, right? Things like that. If we start to incorporate that into our meditations, into self hypnosis, in with our clients and our students to vividly imagine the world the way we want it to be instead of where we fear it's going, that's what helps me. And Joe Dispenza, who we were talking about earlier, he just did world peace walk or something, and so it was a walk for peace, a meditation, and everybody was. I think it could have been last Saturday. It was on the equinox, and so it was a walk for peace, a peace walk. I don't know, it was called different things, but that's the whole concept. Is and I was part of the 1 million meditators. We were doing that for a few years, trying to gather momentum and getting people together, because we've discovered that when people meditate together, the in the area near where the people are meditating, crime rate literally goes down. They brought in 4,000 meditators from all over the world and housed them in the Washington D.C. area in the 1990s to see if they could reduce crime. And the thing is they did by over 20%. At first, the police would have nothing to do with it, but when they realized that crime rate was going down, they got involved. And since that time, there have been over 25 scientific studies done, or 50 actually, demonstrating the benefits of group meditation on the nation as well as in local areas. So yeah.
That is amazing because there's so many people on this planet, and if we could even get a third of them all to simultaneously do a meditation like this for world peace and all the good things, like this planet would transform overnight. That is so amazing, and I love to hear about it. And I've been seeing a lot of these mass meditations more often for sure. I've been seeing a lot of them on YouTube where they're scheduled. It's like, we're doing a meditation for peace or hunger or whatever. Like I've been loving it. There's a person named Stephen Short, who I believe is a remote viewer, and he also did something similar to what you said, where he got a group of individuals to remote view the future. And those stories were really fascinating, like completely fascinating. But they just reminded me of what you said about um, the progression with what was his name?
Dick Sutphin.
Dick Suff, and I have to research him because I have never heard of that, but that sounds amazing. So So, for people who they hear about, regressions and or progression or whatever, and they're like, yeah, but how do you know it's not your subconscious mind making up stories or whatever for that? What can you say towards those skeptical people, or what answers do you have for that?
Well, and I'll go back to Dick Sutphin. He said, just to trust with a capital T, right? Because you're making up real things. Why are you making up that thing? So, for example, like I have a non toxic home and I do not like poison. I don't understand why anyone would like poison. I mean, but anyway, when I went to another lifetime, I ended up accidentally killing myself trying different herbs. So I poisoned myself. So it was really interesting to discover that that was why. Um, but with what Dick would talk about was that he always felt like he was making up things. Whenever he was doing it, he always felt like he was making it up, but then he could find some research backing it up. So it just feels like you're making it up. But why would so let's just pretend I made that up, that I went to a lifetime where I was the medicine woman and the healer and I accidentally killed myself. Well, that for me, that was an awareness that of a possibility that made sense to me that I didn't realize or think of why I didn't like poison so much in this lifetime. And whether it's a metaphor or a truly a past life, there's something there for you to learn and discover about you and yourself.
I love that. Yeah. And for me, anytime I get hit with those questions, I always refer them to the stories that I've seen on YouTube of usually they're children who have these stories, these memories that of things that you can actually go back and look up and like, well, how did this kid know this? There's no way that he could have known this. I think it was like a pilot who died in Pearl Harbor or something like that, and
Yeah, it's either Jack or John. So he went, yeah. So, I mean, that's when I would do my group past life regressions, I would play that video to get people's minds primed. And yeah, he since he was little, he knew everything about these type of fighter planes that no one else, there's no way he could have known. He was watching Barney, not watching these things. And, he was on Dateline, I think it was. They talked to him, and I mean, miracle after miracle. I mean, he just knew things that there was no way he couldn't know before. And when they were interviewing him, and then they kept, and the group, the parents were Christians and didn't believe in past lives and stuff, but their little kid was having trouble sleeping and everything. And so they did everything they could, and they did a ton of research thinking that they were going to debunk, past lives, but in fact they had to get on board with it. And then the Japanese invited him to to a couple places, and he ended up like talking to his sister, because his sister hadn't died, right? So the sister was still alive. And but he had died when he was like 20, and so now he's, possibly this little boy, and he knew what was in her basement, like that his mother's like painting his stuff. I mean, it's spectacular. It's great to watch on YouTube.
wow, I didn't even know about all of that stuff. Now I'm really gonna have to go back and check that out. That is amazing. Wow. Did the kid also remember how to speak the language, or was it he needed an interpreter for that?
No, he was American.
Right. Okay, okay. I just wasn't sure if he had like the memories of the language or not. Um, and there was also the one with the kid with the Titanic. Did you see that one as well? There's a kid who like I think he built the Titanic or he helped design it or something like that, and he knew that one of the shafts was fake, and like there's no way a kid would have known that, and I believe his mom every night would hear him from the room yelling, it's going down," and he didn't want to leave the ship because he loved the Titanic because he built it. So it was a fascinating story. Honestly, it's really good for people who are interested. Um, yeah, I love those stories because it's just like for all those people who are skeptical or doubting it, I'm like, okay, well, check this out. What do you say about that? All it takes is one really good story, and someone's like, okay, I can't explain that, So I love it. So, do you feel like planet Earth is going through like some type of awakening process right now? It seems
Sure
like there's
seems
like
that way.
it seems like so like on YouTube I see like there is a absolutely massive demand for like spiritual type content. Channeling is getting really big. Past life regressions, near death experiences are getting really big. Like there's this hunger for the spirituality. Does it seem like that on your end that we're kind of having this spiritual awakening?
Yes. The short answer is yes. More and more, I start teaching right now when I go to conferences. I'm teaching more spiritual things and intuitive things, and obviously a lot of people are I get calls from people saying they're having like an awakening, a spiritual awakening, or they did, and they need help. They need help processing what's happening to them. And if their nervous systems can get overloaded sometimes, just like it can from any type of stress. Not that that's necessarily stress, but for some people it might be, especially if it's in conflict with their religion or something like that. But we need the world to get into a higher vibration, a higher frequency, which, if you're familiar with Dr. Emoto and his work with the water and bless, taking water and having people, bless it, like love, gratitude, like looking at that water in a container and blessing it, or hating it, yelling at it, and different things. And then he froze it. And then when they looked under a microscope, the love and the gratitude and the prayers were all made these beautiful crystals. The water did. So the water has memory, and the anger and I hate you didn't form crystals at all. Right. So we have Dr. Emoto's work demonstrating that our thoughts affect water, and we're 70% water, and that water has memory, so we can bless our water. If I take my water and bless my water, we just found out that it makes these beautiful crystals. It's in a higher frequency, which I would make up a story that it would definitely benefit your body. And then the study of cymatics, right? The study of cymatics demonstrates what, like, it shows how sound, frequency, and vibration can create different photos, different, not photos, but patterns, right? So same with a high frequency, high vibration pattern, it creates beautiful patterns, kind of like snowflakes and different things. And other frequencies don't do that. So the idea is, if we're all getting into higher vibration frequencies, first of all, we're going to experience more joy, more health, more presence, more happiness. But we are going to be able to, and it's, I believe, my deep desire is to elevate the consciousness of humanity and move us forward into love. And so as people are awakening and working on themselves, we're getting into a higher vibration, a higher frequency, to be able to be more love and get out of that greed mentality.
I love it. I love it. That was a beautiful explanation. So these are the last few questions. What is your definition of God?
Well, is that the same thing as saying, what is your definition of spirit? What is your definition of source? Um,
Up
I,
to you.
you know, I get asked that question, and I could probably talk for a day on that. Um, and for some people, God, that word gets triggered, right? I don't think of God as some white guy in the sky. Sorry. um, and um, I change how I communicate with spirit, and I like to think of it more of energy, that we are energy, and that spirit or God is energy, a creator, right? It could be sound that created. It's a frequency. We know that, sound does something to, words do something. Oh man, that you did not tell me you were going to ask that. Not that you told me you were going to ask anything, but I guess for me, it's whatever it is. It's a loving gift for us to, this is an experience for us. Earth is an experience for us. I believe we came from somewhere and we go somewhere after we, leave our bodies. I believe we're here to learn and grow. And whatever this thing called God is energy, frequency, love, light, and we can communicate with it. I feel like we're each of us is a spark of this energy, of this light. We are all goddesses. Obviously not to that level, but we have the ability to, we just don't believe it yet. If we're trained from the beginning, there are people who can use their mind to move objects and different things. Well, if we practice that all the time, we'll get better at that. So I guess I think we are, the short answer is God is love.
Thank you. That was, I guess that answers my next question, because I was going to ask you, what is your definition of love? And if God is love, then love is God.
So there's so many definitions of love. The name of my keynote speech was called "Turn on Your Love Light," and that is also a song that the Grateful Dead made popular, called "Turn on Your Love Light." And I really started doing my own podcast on it, but then I decided to call it that as a keynote speech. And love. is a high frequency, high vibration. When anybody feels love, it's a feeling, it's a vibration, it's a frequency, and I think it can move matter, heal diseases. It can make us connect to our spiritual selves. It's just it's a way of showing up in the world. It's a state. I remember hearing Deepak Chopra say something about, there's all this space in between atoms. Like, well, that's not what he was saying, but we know that to be true, right? There's all this space in between atoms, just like there's a space between all the stars in the sky. But what is all that dark matter? And he said, what if it's love?
Wow, that's beautiful. What if it's love? So last question, what is the purpose of life to you?
Okay.
I saved the heavy hitters for last.
So, I mean, that one I definitely contemplate more because it is a little bit more tangible than the God frequency or the God code, if you will. But the purpose of the purpose of life on Earth, I think of Earth as a school to learn, to grow. I saw this great meme, if you will, and I got it. I mean, they made it portray like some guy and Jesus talking to each other, and he's like saying to Jesus, like, why do you allow there to be, all this famine and all these diseases and all these horrible, wars and things happening on Earth, and the God Jesus guy is like, funny that you bring that up. I was going to ask you the same question. So,
That was good.
I mean, totally. Like, so the purpose is to learn, to grow, to heal, to find a way to become the best or better version of yourself. This, I do believe, and I've read that, like, we're here to help our soul grow. And this is the fastest and easiest way, not easy, but way for us to, for our souls to grow. And so I like that. That's what I connect with.
Thank you so much. So how can people find out more about you? Where can they find you and connect with you at?
You can go to Randy Light, randylighthypnosis.com. My Facebook is Enlightened Living with Randy Light. I'm on LinkedIn. It's, RandiLight. I'm, on Instagram as Randy Light also. You can, Google my business. I've got some reviews, and just reach out to me. Like, my phone number is 219-929-8726. 219-929-8726. But you can also email me at randylight@gmail.com. So go to my website, randylighthypnosis.com, or, email me, randylighthypnosis at randylight@gmail.com. Find me on any of the social medias, follow, and, message me, and we can talk. You can set up a coaching call on my website, a discovery call, anything that you need. There's a couple of free resources, like a love yourself quiz on my website, and 2 master classes that are free that you can look into, like how to harness the healing power of your heart and the 5 ways your subconscious gets programmed. There's all kinds of great information there.
Thank you so much. Are you also going to the event this month at Mid-American Hope Hypnosis Conference?
Yes, are you?
I'm not exactly sure yet. I'm working out the kinks, but yeah, we'll see. We'll
Oh,
see.
I hope you come. So yeah, I'm teaching enlightening and experiential exercises and activities for groups and individuals. So I hope you come. It will be so fun to see you.
Yes, yes. We'll see. We'll see. We'll see. So thank you so much for being on the show. It was an absolute pleasure to have you. I'll put all the information in the description if the audience want to reach out to you. And yeah, thank you all for watching, everyone. Praise the sun.